Rest assured, I won't stop until I've found justice.
What do you want, little one?
Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
The Naked Gun 2025 marks one of the most ambitious and nostalgic comebacks in Hollywood comedy history. A revival that blends slapstick humor, absurd satire, and modern-day self-awareness into a film that both honors and redefines a classic franchise. More than 3 decades after Leslie Nielsen last graced the screen as the hilariously clueless Detective Frank Drebin, this new installment invites audiences into a world where old-school police parody meets the updated chaos of the 21st century. Directed by Akiva Schaffer and produced under the Paramount Pictures banner, The Naked Gun 2025 doesn't merely attempt to copy its predecessors. It reinvents the formula for today's audience, keeping the comedic rhythm that made the original series a cult legend. From the moment the opening credits roll with that iconic siren-mounted camera shot sweeping through the city streets, fans instantly recognize that the absurd world of The Naked Gun has returned in full force, but with a fresh polish that reflects today's cinematic standards. This reboot comes at a time when nostalgia has become Hollywood's most bankable currency, but few reboots take the kind of risk that The Naked Gun 2025 does. The film's very existence leans on a delicate balance, paying homage to a comedy icon while introducing a new generation to the offbeat rhythm of parody films, a genre that has struggled for relevance since the early 2000s in a cinematic landscape saturated with superhero flicks, grim crime dramas, and algorithm-driven comedies. The sheer absurdity of The Naked Gun feels almost revolutionary. It's a reminder that laughter, when crafted with fearless stupidity and clever timing, can be just as thrilling as any action sequence. The film takes that philosophy and amplifies it, filling every frame with sight gags, wordplay, and perfectly timed chaos. Every joke feels like a callback to the golden age of slapstick while also ridiculing modern society's obsession with seriousness. Liam Neeson's casting as Frank Drebin Jr. initially raised eyebrows among longtime fans and critics alike. Known primarily for his intense roles in thrillers like Taken and The Grey, Neeson seemed an unlikely heir to Nielsen's deadpan comedic throne. Yet, as the film unfolds, it becomes apparent that Neeson's natural gravitas is precisely what makes his performance hilarious. He plays Drebin Jr. with unwavering seriousness even in the most ridiculous situations, whether it's chasing a criminal who's literally glued to a flock of pigeons, or giving an emotional monologue to a sandwich he thinks is a suspect. This unshakable commitment to straight-faced absurdity transforms Neeson into a surprisingly effective comedic anchor, echoing Nielsen's legendary approach. treat every insane situation as deadly serious. That balance of tone is one of the core reasons the film works as both parody and performance art. Beyond its casting, The Naked Gun, 2025 successfully reestablishes the franchise's identity through a combination of classic parody structure and updated cultural commentary. The world of Drebin Jr. is one where technology, social media, and political correctness collide with old-fashioned detective incompetence. A recurring gag features Drebin attempting to use a smartphone as a magnifying glass or accidentally live-streaming a crime scene to millions. These moments capture the essence of modern humor, absurdity grounded in reality, and highlight how parody can evolve without losing its essence. Where the original films lampooned the procedural cop dramas of their era, this version takes aim at streaming-era true crime documentaries, influencer culture, and the corporatization of justice. Every case Drebin takes seems less about solving crimes and more about surviving a society that takes itself too seriously. The film's production design leans heavily into the retro-modern aesthetic. Classic police station sets meet LED-lit offices and touchscreen crime boards. Yet within this sleek setting, the chaos remains unapologetically dumb. File cabinets that explode, coffee machines that shoot bullets, and officers who spend more time rehearsing TikTok dances than actual police work. Each visual gag functions as both nostalgia and commentary, proving that absurd humor can still thrive when paired with modern visual storytelling. The cinematography, led by Brandon Troost, blends parody with cinematic grandeur. Wide, dramatic shots, often reserved for gritty thrillers, are undercut by ridiculous payoffs. One particularly memorable sequence shows Drebin dramatically walking away from an explosion, only for it to be revealed that it was a fireworks display for a child's birthday party. Musically, the film continues the tradition of grandiose orchestral themes juxtaposed with ludicrous on-screen action. The score by Mark Mothersbaugh adds layers of camp and irony, treating every pratfall like a heroic moment. This musical exaggeration heightens the film's comic energy, reminding viewers that the Naked Gun universe is one where melodrama is both the setup and the punchline. In between the chaos, the film finds moments of sincere warmth. Drebin's awkward relationship with his partner, played by Pamela Adlon, offers a few emotional beats that, while intentionally overdone, give the film a surprisingly cohesive emotional arc. At its heart, though, The Naked Gun 2025 is a love letter to the art of stupidity. Every scene is a masterclass in comedic timing, jokes layered within jokes, background gags running parallel to dialogue, and a relentless pace that rarely gives audiences a chance to breathe. Unlike modern comedies that rely on improvisation or meta-humor, this film embraces the precision of old-school comedy structure. Each punchline is choreographed like an action stunt, and every visual gag is treated with the seriousness of a dramatic reveal. The result is a film that feels meticulously crafted despite its chaotic appearance, a hallmark of true parody excellence. Akiva Schaffer's direction shows deep respect for Zucker-style comedy while infusing it with the rhythmic editing and energy of contemporary action. The social satire is another layer that makes the film particularly relevant in 25. From political scandals to celebrity culture, no target is safe. One standout sequence parodies the modern obsession with cancel culture, as Drebin accidentally cancels himself multiple times over the course of an investigation, leading to his suspension, reinstatement, and cancellation again, all within a single day. Another scene mocks the true crime boom, with Drebin narrating his own life as if it were a documentary, complete with dramatic reenactments and interviews with confused bystanders. These moments highlight how parody, when done intelligently, can reflect the absurdity of real-world trends without feeling preachy or cynical. The decision to make The Naked Gun 2025 relatively short, clocking in at just 85 minutes, was deliberate. The filmmakers wanted to capture the brisk, punchy rhythm of classic comedies, where no joke overstays its welcome. The pacing keeps the energy alive from start to finish. Each minute serves a purpose, either to set up a laugh, deliver a gag, or launch the next ridiculous twist. The editing plays a crucial role here. Cuts are sharp and transitions often become jokes in themselves. In one instance, Drebin dramatically says, "I'll find the truth if it's the last thing I do," only to cut immediately to his retirement party 3 months later. Such quick-fire editing makes the film feel alive and unpredictable, keeping audiences laughing even as the narrative veers into madness. One of the key strengths of this reboot is its respect for legacy without being enslaved by it. The film includes subtle tributes to Leslie Nielsen through Easter eggs and visual nods, a portrait in the police station, a recurring reference to the old days, and a final dedication card during the end credits. These moments ground the movie emotionally, reminding viewers of the comedic genius that started it all. But rather than relying on nostalgia alone, The Naked Gun 2025 confidently builds its own comedic identity. It's aware that audiences today are more media-savvy. They've seen every trope, every parody, every meme. So instead of retreading old ground, the movie mocks that very awareness. Characters comment on cliché moments even as they perform them, creating a meta-comedy that's as self-referential as it is absurd. The return of The Naked Gun also signifies a broader revival of parody cinema. For years, the genre suffered under a flood of lazy, reference-heavy spoofs that mistook pop culture name-dropping for humor. Schaffer and his team reclaimed the craft by focusing on story, character, and timing rather than cheap parody. They remind audiences that true satire doesn't just mimic, it exaggerates truth until it collapses under its own weight. In that spirit, The Naked Gun 2025 becomes more than a comedy. It's a cinematic mirror reflecting how ridiculous the modern world already is. The jokes land not because they're random, but because they expose the absurdity of the systems we take for granted. Bureaucracy, law enforcement, media sensationalism, all filtered through Drebin's bumbling incompetence. By the time the film reaches its climax, a chaotic showdown at a diplomatic summit, the humor escalates to spectacular levels. Helicopters crash into buffets, villains slip on peace treaties, and Drebin delivers an impassioned speech about justice while unknowingly sitting on a live grenade. The absurdity peaks, the tension mounts, and somehow, amidst the madness, the film manages to deliver a message about resilience and laughter. Comedy, it suggests, is the last refuge of sanity in a world gone mad. The Naked Gun franchise began as a comedic revolution, one that transformed the landscape of parody cinema forever. Long before the 2025 reboot, the series had already established itself as a cultural cornerstone of slapstick brilliance, wordplay, and absurdist humor. Rooted in the DNA of the 1980s and 1990s, the original Naked Gun trilogy, The Naked Gun, From the Files of Police Squad, 1988, The Naked Gun, 1-2, The Smell of Fear, 1991, and The Naked Gun 3-13, The Final Insult, 1994, captured the essence of parody at its finest. Each installment showcased a rare alchemy of comedic timing, sharp direction, and an unflinching dedication to pure, unadulterated silliness. Created by the legendary trio David Zucker, Jim Abrahams, and Jerry Zucker, collectively known as the series redefined what it meant to make people laugh at the absurdities of everyday life and the seriousness of cinematic storytelling. The origins of the Naked Gun franchise trace back to an earlier cult television series, Police Squad, 1982, which aired on ABC. Despite being canceled after only 6 episodes, Police Squad became a cult classic due to its unconventional humor. It spoofed the police procedural genre, presenting dramatic crime stories with deadpan seriousness while surrounding them with surreal and ridiculous elements. Leslie Nielsen starred as Detective Frank Drebin, a bumbling yet earnest police officer whose clueless confidence became the cornerstone of the show's humor. The show's failure on television wasn't due to lack of quality. Rather, it was because the comedy required undivided attention. Jokes were visual, layered, and lightning fast, something television audiences weren't used to at the time. However, those same qualities became the foundation for the feature film adaptation 6 years later, when The Naked Gun, From the Files of Police Squad, premiered in 1988. It didn't just revive the concept, it exploded into mainstream success. The film became an instant classic, praised for its razor-sharp wit and constant barrage of gags. Every frame of the movie carried a joke, whether visual, verbal, or situational. Leslie Nielsen's portrayal of Frank Drebin was iconic, a masterclass in straight-faced absurdity. His ability to deliver the most nonsensical lines with complete sincerity made him a comedy legend. Lines like "Nice Beaver," followed by Priscilla Presley handing him a stuffed animal, or "I am serious and don't call me Shirley," originally from Airplane, but embodying his comedic essence, showcased his impeccable deadpan delivery. Nielsen's genius lay in his ability to treat every absurd situation as though it were Shakespearean tragedy, thereby magnifying the humor through contrast. The first Naked Gun film was a satire not only of police dramas but also of the self-seriousness of Hollywood itself. It parodied the tropes of the detective genre, the hard-boiled narration, the noir lighting, the stoic masculinity, and turned them on their head. Scenes that would typically be dramatic in other films became riotous in The Naked Gun. For example, a romantic montage between Drebin and Jane, Priscilla Presley, involved absurd imagery, like running through parks with full garbage bags or laughing hysterically while using condoms as hats. The film's comedic rhythm was relentless, using sight gags, slapstick, verbal puns, and background jokes all at once. This density of humor became the series' trademark. Viewers often needed multiple rewatches to catch every joke hidden in the frame, a newspaper headline, a misplaced prop, or a sign in the background. The success of the first film naturally led to sequels, each attempting to raise the stakes while maintaining the same comedic intensity. The Naked Gun 2, 1 or 2, The Smell of Fear, 1991, continued Drebin's misadventures as he uncovered a plot involving renewable energy and corporate corruption. While the film's story was just a loose excuse for non-stop gags, it maintained the brilliance of the original. The absurdity of Drebin's investigative methods, such as interrogating statues or accidentally destroying evidence, remained intact. The movie's humor extended even to its title, mocking Hollywood's tendency to use increasingly ridiculous sequel numbering conventions. Critics were divided over whether the humor was as fresh as the original, but audiences embraced it wholeheartedly. The sequel grossed over $80 million worldwide, solidifying the franchise's reputation as one of the greatest comedy trilogies of all time. By the time The Naked Gun 33-13, The Final Insult, 1994 arrived, the franchise had achieved full cultural saturation. Leslie Nielsen's Frank Drebin had become a household name, a symbol of comedic perfection. The third film took aim at Hollywood itself, parodying the glitz and glamour of award shows. Its climactic sequence, set at the Academy Awards, remains one of the most memorable finales in comedy cinema. Drebin, disguised as a woman, infiltrates the ceremony to prevent a terrorist attack, leading to a chaotic and hilarious cascade of mistaken identities, explosions, and musical numbers. While critics noted that the formula was beginning to show signs of fatigue, audiences still laughed uncontrollably. Even when the jokes were familiar, Nielsen's charm and timing made them land with the same force as ever. What made the Naked Gun films so unique was their unwavering commitment to humor at all costs. There were no pauses for sentimentality or moral lessons. Every scene was designed to make audiences laugh, often through sheer absurdity. The Zaz team perfected a comedic formula that relied on precision and rhythm, rather than improvisation. Each gag was meticulously planned, every prop carefully positioned for maximum payoff. This level of craftsmanship set the films apart from the countless imitators that followed. Later spoof films like Scary Movie, Epic Movie, and Date Movie attempted to replicate the formula, but lacked the same sincerity. The Naked Gun team wasn't just referencing pop culture. They were building an entire comedic universe where logic didn't apply. And that was the joke. Leslie Nielsen's transformation from a dramatic actor to a comedy icon was another cornerstone of the franchise's legacy. Before Airplane, 1980, and The Naked Gun, Nielsen had spent decades playing serious roles in dramas and thrillers. His stone-faced demeanor and commanding voice made him perfect for parody, because he could play ridiculous scenes with total conviction. His Frank Drebin was clueless yet confident, foolish yet strangely lovable. He wasn't trying to be funny. He was funny because he didn't realize how absurd his world was. That innocence gave the character an enduring charm that audiences still adore. Nielsen's influence can be seen in countless modern comedians who employ similar deadpan styles, from Steve Carell's Michael Scott in The Office to Will Ferrell's Anchorman. Another key element of the franchise's success was its supporting cast and recurring characters. Priscilla Presley as Jane Spencer brought both beauty and impeccable comedic timing, playing the perfect straight woman to Drebin's idiocy. George Kennedy as Captain Ed Hawken and O.J. Simpson as Officer Nordberg added layers of running gags and slapstick chaos. Each sequel expanded their comedic potential. Nordberg constantly suffering from injuries or accidents. Hawkins' oblivious encouragement fueling Drebin's incompetence. These characters made the world of The Naked Gun feel lived in, chaotic, and endlessly funny. They were the glue that held the absurdity together, grounding the comedy in a recurring cast of lovable fools. The influence of the original trilogy on comedy cannot be overstated. It inspired an entire generation of filmmakers and comedians who learned that parody could be both clever and stupid at the same time. Films like Hot Shots, Austin Powers, and Galaxy Quest owe a creative debt to The Naked Gun. Even modern animated shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons borrow its visual gag style and absurd logic. The idea that comedy could exist in every frame, from dialogue to set design, was revolutionary. Before The Naked Gun, most comedies relied on dialogue-driven humor or character-based wit. After it, filmmakers began treating every inch of the screen as a potential punchline. The trilogy also maintained a distinct tone, lighthearted, non-cynical, and universally accessible. While modern comedy often leans on sarcasm, cringe, or shock value, The Naked Gun found humor in innocence and exaggeration. It mocked everything and everyone equally, but never with malice. The jokes were inclusive, meant to unite audiences in shared laughter rather than divide them through edginess. That spirit of joyful absurdity is what the 2025 reboot seeks to reclaim. The world has changed since 1994. Comedy has evolved, and sensitivities have shifted. But the timelessness of The Naked Gun's humor remains unshaken. From a technical standpoint, the original trilogy's craftsmanship was also ahead of its time. The cinematography mimicked serious cop thrillers, creating a visual tension that heightened the comedy. Every slow-motion shot, every dramatic zoom, every noir lighting setup was designed to parody the seriousness of police procedurals. The production design mirrored the tone of films like Dirty Harry or Lethal Weapon, yet filled those worlds with banana peels, collapsing furniture, and malfunctioning gadgets. The Zaz team's genius was their ability to maintain the illusion of drama even when chaos erupted on screen. Critically, the Naked Gun series was celebrated for its consistency. Each film received positive reviews for its humor density and Nielsen's performance. The first film holds an impressive rating on Rotten Tomatoes, often appearing in lists of the greatest comedies of all time. Its influence continues to resonate in pop culture. When it comes to cinematic revivals, few projects carry as much nostalgic pressure as The Naked Gun, 2025. The reboot is not simply a continuation of the beloved slapstick crime comedy franchise. It's a full-scale reimagining designed for a 21st century audience. While the original series thrived on its absurd humor, deadpan delivery, and physical comedy that defined the late 80s and early 90s, this 2025 installment takes that DNA and injects it with modern pacing, cinematography, and pop culture awareness. Directed by Akiva Schaffer, best known for his sharp comedic timing from Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, and Hot Rod, the film represents a careful balancing act between homage and innovation. The creative team understood that today's comedy landscape is faster, more self-aware, and layered. Audiences expect humor that is both nostalgic and relevant. Thus, the reboot is crafted not as a parody of police films, but as a meta-commentary on Hollywood reboots themselves. One of the most noticeable changes in this new version is the visual tone. The 2025 Naked Gun replaces the older, TV-like simplicity of its predecessors with a slick, cinematic polish. The lighting, camera work, and editing are reminiscent of modern action thrillers, intentionally designed to look too serious, because the comedy hits hardest when the visuals refuse to admit the joke. Every explosion, chase, or interrogation scene is shot as if it belongs in Mission Impossible, but then twisted by the characters' complete obliviousness to the absurdity happening around them. This juxtaposition of high-stakes presentation and ridiculous content gives the movie a fresh comedic rhythm that both honors the original and entertains a new generation. In terms of writing, the reboot embraces modern dialogue patterns while retaining that signature Naked Gun deadpan tone. The screenplay by Dan Greger and Doug Mand, the duo behind Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, is packed with clever wordplay, ironic callbacks, and gags that reward attentive viewers. They've avoided simply rehashing old jokes. Instead, they introduce self-referential humor about the very nature of remakes and the passage of time. For example, one running joke involves Frank Drebin Jr. trying to adapt to new police technology and AI-driven crime-solving tools that he consistently misunderstands, often turning smart devices into chaotic partners. This blending of old-school humor with modern absurdities gives the reboot a unique comedic identity that feels familiar yet surprising. Another critical update lies in the film's character dynamics. While the original focused heavily on Leslie Nielsen's iconic portrayal of Frank Drebin Sr., the new version centers on his son, played by Liam Neeson. This generational shift isn't just for show, it's the emotional core of the movie. Neeson's Drebin Jr. is a man living under the shadow of his father's reputation, both in-universe and in cinematic legacy. The film uses this to comment on how comedy itself has evolved. Can a serious man be funny in an era where irony dominates? Liam Neeson, primarily known for his action roles, becomes the perfect vessel for this experiment. His straight-faced seriousness becomes the film's biggest comedic weapon, turning every line into an unintentional punchline. The filmmakers leverage Neeson's persona to deliver jokes that only work because of his commitment to the absurd. The supporting cast also brings a new layer of freshness. Tiffany Haddish plays a tough, no-nonsense partner who constantly questions Drebin Jr.'s methods while unknowingly contributing to the chaos. Her energetic, fast-talking style contrasts beautifully with Neeson's stoic absurdity, creating a dynamic that fuels most of the film's funniest moments. Paul Walter Hauser joins as a bumbling tech expert who's more interested in TikTok fame than solving crimes, while Kevin Hart makes a memorable cameo as an overly intense FBI agent who takes everything way too literally. These additions give the film a contemporary ensemble energy that reflects today's comedy sensibilities. Fast, chaotic, and meme-aware without ever feeling cheap, the movie's humor also extends to cultural satire. Unlike earlier Naked Gun films that primarily mocked crime dramas and procedural tropes, this reboot widens its scope to poke fun at Hollywood itself. There are jokes about endless sequels, franchise fatigue, streaming wars, and even the way audiences analyze Easter eggs in trailers. The writers smartly use the reboot platform to comment on the industry's obsession with nostalgia. At one point, a character remarks, "If it worked once, Hollywood will make sure it works again, and again and again," as the camera pans to a wall of sequels like Fast and Furious 12 and Jurassic Universe. This self-awareness gives the film a clever modern edge that older parodies often lacked. Visually, the action scenes are choreographed with real intensity, and that's what makes them funny. The 2025 version doubles down on making every explosion and chase sequence look too epic for its own good. The contrast between the exaggerated visuals and the completely clueless characters turns every serious scene into a comedy set piece. One standout sequence involves Drebin Jr. accidentally joining a high-speed drone pursuit while trying to order coffee through a voice assistant. The scene plays out like a gritty action film until the punchline lands, revealing he's been chasing a delivery robot the entire time. This blend of realism and absurdity shows the creative confidence behind the reboot. It's not just copying the old formula, it's expanding it. Perhaps the boldest innovation is how the movie balances parody with plot. The original Naked Gun movies were essentially a string of disconnected gags tied loosely together by a crime story. The reboot, however, gives more structure to the narrative. There's a coherent mystery involving political corruption, AI surveillance, and a plot to replace real cops with artificial ones. Beneath the jokes lies a surprisingly tight storyline that moves with purpose, keeping audiences invested even between the laughs. This choice reflects how modern audiences expect more from comedy films. They want a story that matters, not just jokes for the sake of it. The film's tone also evolves. It's still a comedy first, but there's an undercurrent of commentary about legacy, both personal and cinematic. Frank Drebin Jr.'s journey mirrors that of the Naked Gun franchise itself, trying to stay relevant in a world that has changed. His struggle to balance sincerity and absurdity becomes the heart of the movie, resonating with anyone who feels left behind by modern times. By using humor to explore these themes, the reboot becomes more than just a parody. It's a reflection on how culture, comedy, and identity evolve. Akiva Schaffer's direction ensures that the film never loses momentum. His experience with The Lonely Island and his mastery of meta-comedy let him play with layers of meaning. Sometimes the film parodies itself, Sometimes it parodies its own parody. The pacing is sharp, the transitions are smooth, and the comedic beats land with precision. Even when jokes fail, as some inevitably do in rapid-fire comedies, the film never lingers long enough for the audience to notice. It keeps moving like a roller coaster of laughter and chaos. In summary, The Naked Gun 2025 reboot is far more than just a recycled idea. It's a love letter to a bygone era of physical comedy, upgraded for a digital age. It respects the original slapstick spirit while daring to modernize it. The new tone, updated characters, and layered writing make it stand out in a sea of lazy reboots. By blending nostalgia with innovation, it succeeds where many remakes fail. It finds new reasons to exist. Fans of the old series will appreciate the respectful nods to Leslie Nielsen's legacy, while newcomers will discover a brand of comedy that feels both fresh and timeless. In the end, the reboot doesn't just ask whether The Naked Gun can still make us laugh. It proves that absurdity, when done right, is eternal. Casting Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin Jr. in The Naked Gun 2025 was one of the most unexpected yet genius decisions in modern Hollywood. At first glance, Neeson, known for his intense, brooding roles in action thrillers like Taken, The Commuter, and Cold Pursuit, might seem like an odd choice to lead a slapstick comedy. But that's exactly why it works. His signature seriousness and the calm, gravelly voice and stoic demeanor becomes the perfect weapon in a world built on absurdity. Every line he delivers with absolute conviction makes the ridiculous situations around him even funnier. The creative brilliance lies in subverting audience expectations. Instead of hiring a traditional comedian, the filmmakers brought in an actor whose gravitas transforms simple gags into comedic gold. When audiences first heard about Neeson's casting, the reactions were divided. Some questioned whether a man famous for a particular set of skills could step into a role once owned by the late legendary Leslie Nielsen, a comedic icon with unmatched timing and expression. But others saw potential in Neeson's ability to play deadpan characters flawlessly. As production rolled on, early screenings proved that skepticism wrong. Neeson didn't try to imitate Nielsen. Instead, he created his own interpretation of the Drebin legacy, a man trying to be serious in a world that refuses to take him seriously. This difference in tone allowed the reboot to stand on its own feet, rather than being trapped in nostalgia. Frank Drebin Jr. is introduced as a competent, disciplined cop who constantly finds himself surrounded by incompetence and chaos, a mirror image of his father's legacy, but with a modern twist. The film uses this contrast to explore the theme of generational inheritance. How do you live up to a legend, especially when that legend is both brilliant and ridiculous? Neeson portrays this internal conflict subtly, balancing sincerity with the slow realization that his world is absurd. This emotional layer makes Drebin Jr. more relatable while still keeping the comedy intact. One of the film's strengths is how Neeson's character evolves. He begins as a man who takes everything too seriously, but ends up embracing the lunacy around him, proving that laughter might be the only way to survive a nonsensical world. Director Akiva Schaffer reportedly pushed Neeson to avoid overt humor and to never play the joke. That directive became the film's guiding principle. Instead of winking at the audience or exaggerating his reactions, Neeson plays every scene as though he's in a gritty crime thriller. This commitment amplifies the humor because his surroundings refuse to match his tone. Whether he's interrogating a witness whose parrot keeps answering for them or dramatically diving to save a sandwich he mistakes for a bomb, Neeson's composure never falters. That unwavering intensity becomes the essence of the character. What truly elevates Neeson's performance is his ability to find humanity within the comedy. He doesn't just play a caricature. He builds a man shaped by duty, haunted by his father's clumsy legacy and struggling to maintain dignity in a universe that laughs at him. Beneath the slapstick, you sense a man who genuinely wants to do good, even if everything he does goes hilariously wrong. This emotional grounding ensures the comedy never feels hollow. The audience laughs not at him, but with him, recognizing that we've all been Drebin Jr. at some point, trying to stay serious while the world collapses into nonsense around us. Another fascinating aspect is how the film leverages Neeson's action hero image for humor. The Naked Gun reboot turns his previous roles into running jokes. There's a scene where Drebin Jr. receives a call about his particular set of skills, only to respond dryly, My best skill right now is finding the restroom. It's a clever wink at his past filmography while maintaining the film's grounded absurdity. Action sequences, too, parody his tough guy persona. In one chase scene, Neeson's Drebin performs stunts worthy of Taken, but the camera slowly pans out to reveal he's been battling a self-driving scooter. These gags hit perfectly because they play with audience memory, using Neeson's reputation as a dramatic powerhouse to fuel the comedy. The chemistry between Neeson and his co-stars also plays a massive role in making the character work. Tiffany Haddish's high-energy performance as his partner provides the perfect foil to his deadpan delivery. Their banter feels like a tug-of-war between chaos and control, with Neeson always trying and failing to maintain professionalism. Their dynamic recalls the old-school buddy cop formula, but updated for modern sensibilities. In one hilarious exchange, Haddish accuses him of being too dramatic for breakfast, to which Neeson, without missing a beat, replies, "Justice doesn't take coffee breaks." It's these moments of tonal dissonance and comedy born from sincerity that define his portrayal. Neeson's comedic approach also benefits from impeccable timing. His pauses, his gaze, and his deliberate speech patterns become punchlines. He understands that comedy isn't about telling jokes, but about being the joke, the straight man who makes the chaos funnier simply by existing. His restraint is refreshing in an age of over-the-top performances. Rather than forcing laughter, he earns it through presence and authenticity. This mastery of timing shows Neeson's surprising range as an actor and his respect for the craft of comedy. From a thematic perspective, Neeson's casting also serves as a metaphor for the film industry's evolution. Just as Frank Drebin Jr. must step into his father's shoes, Neeson steps into a role made famous by Nielsen, both navigating the pressure of living up to an icon. The movie subtly uses this parallel to comment on Hollywood's obsession with legacy and reinvention. When Neeson's Drebin remarks, "They told me I had big shoes to fill," turns out they were clown shoes, the line lands, not just as a joke but as a self-aware acknowledgement of the film's audacity in recasting such a beloved character. Critics have praised Neeson for bringing credibility to the chaos. His presence anchors the film, preventing it from becoming too silly. This balance of seriousness and humor is what makes his performance special. He never sacrifices dignity, even when the world around him is collapsing into farce. Many reviewers noted that his version of Drebin feels like a natural extension of the franchise, rather than a forced replacement. By leaning into his strengths instead of mimicking Nielsen, Neeson ensures the reboot stands independently while still paying homage to its roots. The physicality of Neeson's performance deserves special mention. At 73, he performs several demanding sequences, from sliding under moving cars to dodging malfunctioning drones, all played for laughs. His commitment to performing his own stunts, even in comedic contexts, adds authenticity. The film cleverly turns his real-life intensity into a punchline. Every dramatic motion becomes unintentionally hilarious. The combination of genuine effort and absurd context captures the spirit of The Naked Gun perfectly. The harder you try to take it seriously, the funnier it becomes. Ultimately, Liam Neeson's portrayal of Frank Drebin Jr. is a masterclass in comedic restraint. He doesn't try to be funny, and that's precisely why he is. His unwavering commitment to the bit transforms every scene into an exercise in irony. By casting an actor known for action and gravitas, the filmmakers breathed new life into a genre that often struggles to find fresh angles. Neeson proves that great comedy doesn't always come from clowns or stand-ups. Sometimes it comes from warriors who don't realize they're in a circus. In the larger picture, Neeson's Drebin Jr. ensures that The Naked Gun, 2025, isn't just another nostalgic cash grab. He gives the film a soul, a purpose, and a distinct identity. Through his performance, the movie bridges the gap between generations, honoring the past while confidently embracing the future. What could have been a parody of itself becomes instead a celebration of the art of seriousness in a world that demands laughter. Liam Neeson didn't just take on the role of Frank Drebin Jr. He reinvented what it means to be the straight man in comedy, proving that even in the most ridiculous circumstances, sincerity is the ultimate punchline. The ultimate punchline. While The Naked Gun, 2025, revolves primarily around Liam Neeson's stoic brilliance as Frank Drebin Jr., the movie's comedic energy and rhythm rely heavily on its supporting cast. The ensemble surrounding Neeson transforms what could have been a simple parody film into a fully realized comedy universe. Each actor brings a unique flavor to the chaos, representing different shades of humor, from slapstick and situational absurdity to quick-witted sarcasm and physical comedy. Together they create a dynamic balance that keeps the film fast-paced, unpredictable, and constantly funny. At the center of this supporting storm stands Tiffany Haddish, playing Detective Carla Banks, Drebin Jr.'s partner, and the emotional counterweight to his deadpan seriousness. Haddish, known for her electric performances in films like Girls Trip and Night School, brings vibrant energy and contemporary comedic timing. Her character is street-smart, loud and unfiltered, the exact opposite of Neeson's disciplined by-the-book detective. This clash of personalities is where much of the film's humor originates. The two share a constant back-and-forth rhythm, with Haddish's fast-talking sass bouncing off Neeson's slow, deliberate replies. Carla Banks is not just comic relief. She's the voice of reason in a world gone mad. Her sharp instincts often solve cases while Drebin Jr. stumbles into success by accident. Yet despite her competence, she can't escape the film's signature absurdity, whether it's accidentally handcuffing herself to a street performer or trying to interrogate a mime who only answers in interpretive dance. Haddish's performance is pure comedic gold because she never loses authenticity, even in ridiculous situations. Her chemistry with Neeson is one of the reboot's strongest assets. They don't just play partners, they embody the perfect comedic duo of chaos and control. Next, there's Paul Walter Hauser as Greg "Techie" Morris, the precinct's overeager technology specialist. Known for his roles in I, Tonya and Blackbird, Hauser excels at playing lovable oddballs. And The Naked Gun, 2025, uses that talent to full effect. Greg is obsessed with gadgets, drones, and artificial intelligence, all of which tend to malfunction spectacularly. One running gag involves him trying to upgrade the police database with emotional AI, which ends up crying every time it detects crime reports. His inventions often cause more trouble than they solve, but Hauser's earnest delivery makes every mishap endearing. Hauser's character also adds a layer of social satire. Through him, the movie pokes fun at modern technology's overreach and humanity's blind faith in smart solutions. His attempts to modernize the Force contrast hilariously with Drebin Jr.'s old-school methods. In one scene, Greg introduces a crime-solving app called Cop GPT, which accidentally recommends yoga instead of tactical response during a hostage crisis. Hauser's subtle, self-aware comedy blends perfectly with Neeson's oblivious intensity, creating some of the film's best laugh-out-loud moments. Another standout performance comes from Kevin Hart, who appears in a memorable cameo as Special Agent Marcus Steele. Though his screen time is limited, Hart's explosive energy leaves a lasting impression. His character is a hyper-serious FBI agent who treats every minor incident like a national emergency. Hart's trademark rapid-fire delivery contrasts hilariously with Neeson's slow-paced dialogue. In one sequence, Steele bursts into the precinct screaming, "We're facing Code Red protocol," only for Drebin to respond, "That's impossible. We're out of red ink." The deadpan exchange captures the spirit of The Naked Gun perfectly, chaos born from the simplest misunderstandings. Rounding out the comedic core is Ben Schwartz, who plays Alan Ricks, the precinct's PR manager. Schwartz's sarcastic charm and improvisational wit bring a modern, media-savvy touch to the story. Alan's job is to manage the department's social image, which becomes increasingly difficult as Drebin Jr.'s misadventures go viral online. The movie uses this subplot to lampoon today's obsession with social media image management. Schwartz's character constantly spins disasters into heroic moments, like describing Drebin accidentally destroying a parade float as a bold act of public safety awareness. His fast-talking cynicism grounds the film's absurdity in sharp social commentary. On the other end of the spectrum, Regina Hall appears as Police Chief Eleanor Briggs, a tough-as-nails leader with zero patience for nonsense, yet perpetually surrounded by it. Hall's performance brings authority and exasperation in equal measure. She spends most of the film juggling public pressure, bureaucratic chaos, and Drebin's accidental heroics. Her dynamic with Neeson is particularly entertaining. She respects him as a detective, but can't decide whether to fire or promote him. The writers give her some of the best deadpan lines in the film, like when she tells Drebin, "You're the best detective I've ever seen," and statistically, the biggest insurance liability. Hall's ability to deliver dry humor while maintaining command of the scene adds depth to the ensemble. Adding to the mix is John Cena, who plays recurring villain Brock Gunther, a charismatic, overly confident tech billionaire with delusions of grandeur. Cena's role marks a delightful departure from his usual heroic persona, allowing him to flex his comedic muscles as a self-absorbed antagonist. Gunther's plan to replace police officers with his AI surveillance network sets up the movie's central conflict. Cena's performance walks the perfect line between menacing and ridiculous. He gives motivational speeches to his army of malfunctioning drones and treats every corporate presentation like a WWE promo. His physicality makes every confrontation with Neeson visually hilarious, especially when their fights descend into exaggerated chaos. Another fan favorite is Awkwafina, who plays a quirky forensic analyst named Dr. Luna Kim. Known for her quick wit, Awkwafina's character brings an offbeat scientific energy to the team. She's brilliant but distractible, constantly mixing evidence samples or testing experimental gadgets on herself. One memorable moment has her accidentally shrinking Drebin's police badge to the size of a postage stamp. Her chemistry with Paul Walter Hauser provides a sweet and chaotic friendship dynamic, as the two nerdy techies compete to invent the next big gadget, often resulting in explosions, smoke, or misplaced body parts. The film also features Ken Jeong as Mayor Harold Choi, a politically ambitious leader who is perpetually caught between PR scandals and Drebin's antics. Jeong's over-the-top expressions and impeccable timing make every scene he's in a highlight. Whether he's giving dramatic press conferences about heroic incompetence or hiding under a podium during a live debate, his presence keeps the movie's political satire sharp and relatable. Supporting cameos from comedy veterans like Steve Martin, Kristen Wiig, and Bill Hader add layers of surprise throughout the movie. Each appears briefly but memorably. Martin as a confused news anchor, Wiig as a crime podcast host who idolizes Drebin, and Hader as a rival detective who takes himself far too seriously. These brief appearances not only delight fans but also create an atmosphere of unpredictability, where humor can come from anywhere, at any time. What makes the supporting cast so effective is how they never feel like background filler. Each character is a functioning piece of the comedy machine, contributing both to the narrative and the humor. The writers and director treat every personality, no matter how absurd, as essential to the film's world building. This approach ensures that The Naked Gun 2025 doesn't just rely on its lead actor's charisma, it thrives on ensemble chemistry. Every performer understands the tone. Play it straight, never wink at the camera, and let the absurdity unfold naturally. This collective discipline allows the movie to maintain its rhythm. Haddish's bold improvisation, Hauser's innocence, Cena's exaggerated villainy, and Hall's weary authority all orbit around Neeson's stoicism, forming a perfect comedic solar system. Ultimately, the supporting cast elevates The Naked Gun 2025 from a simple reboot to a living, breathing comedy event. They don't just surround the hero, they define him. Each character reveals a new facet of Drebin Jr.'s personality, forcing him to react, adapt, and occasionally fail spectacularly. It's through this network of quirky allies and enemies that the film finds its heart, proving once again that great comedy isn't built on one star. It's built on a universe of chaos, timing, and shared absurdity. The storyline of The Naked Gun 2025 perfectly captures the spirit of the original trilogy, while injecting it with a contemporary flair that makes it relevant for modern audiences. The film opens with a humorous yet action-packed chase through downtown Los Angeles, immediately signaling that this reboot will blend high-stakes crime with over-the-top comedic timing. Liam Neeson's Frank Drebin Jr. is introduced as a well-meaning but hopelessly clumsy detective trying to live up to his father's legacy, the legendary Frank Drebin Sr., whose chaotic heroics were the stuff of police legend. From the first scene, audiences are reminded that Drebin's world is one where the absurd and the serious constantly collide. The movie's plot centers around a stolen government microchip that holds critical security data capable of controlling global satellite systems. Frank Jr. is reluctantly called back to the force after a long suspension due to a series of hilarious mishaps in his previous cases. The chief, desperate for results, gives him one last chance. Recover the chip before it falls into the hands of an international crime syndicate led by a mysterious villain named Victor Zorin. This setup creates a mix of action, parody, and chaos that mirrors the structure of classic spy thrillers, only turned completely upside down by Drebin's clueless yet oddly effective detective work. As the story progresses, Drebin Jr. partners with Officer Jane Smith, played by a charismatic and witty co-lead, whose quick comebacks balance Drebin's naive confidence. Their chemistry fuels the film's humor. She's the logical, eye-rolling realist to his disaster-prone dreamer. The movie cleverly parodies the buddy cop dynamic seen in serious franchises like Bad Boys and Lethal Weapon, turning every cliché into an opportunity for laughter. Scenes like a malfunctioning crime lab, mistaken arrests, and a disastrous press conference provide the kind of physical and situational comedy that defined the original series. One of the most memorable sequences occurs when Drebin infiltrates a high-tech gala to retrieve the stolen microchip. What begins as a suave spy moment quickly unravels into pandemonium. Champagne fountains explode, security systems glitch, and Drebin accidentally activates a series of drones that start dive-bombing guests. The chaos is meticulously choreographed so that even as everything goes wrong, it feels intentional and comedic. This balance between slapstick and smart timing is one of the film's strongest points, showing how the director manages to modernize classic humor without losing its charm. Throughout the middle act, the story dives deeper into Drebin's personal insecurities about living in his father's shadow. His attempts to prove himself often backfire in hilarious ways, from accidentally blowing up an evidence locker to confusing the chief's dog for a bomb-sniffing unit. These comedic missteps not only keep the laughs coming but also humanize Drebin as a character who genuinely wants to do the right thing, even if he's terrible at it. The emotional undercurrent gives the story more heart than one might expect from a parody. Grounding the comedy in real motivation and growth, the narrative also explores the tension between old-school detective work and modern technology. Drebin constantly fumbles with gadgets, leading to absurd moments like trying to interrogate Siri or mistaking a self-driving car for a suspect. These gags are sharp commentaries on the digital age, showing how humor can emerge from our growing dependence on tech. The writers ensure that the story never lingers too long on exposition. Every plot point is an excuse for a laugh or a twist. As the film nears its climax, Drebin and Jane track Victor Zorin to an offshore facility where he plans to auction the stolen chip to the highest bidder. The final act is both thrilling and ridiculous, featuring an underwater chase, exploding jet skis, and a fight sequence where Drebin mistakenly handcuffs himself to the villain. Amid all the chaos, he still manages to save the day, not through skill but through sheer luck and the same bumbling determination that defined his father. The ending brings the story full circle. Drebin is finally recognized for his heroic deeds, though everyone knows his success was a happy accident. The final scene features a classic Naked Gun-style freeze frame, a callback to the old films, showing Drebin smiling proudly as a background fire erupts unnoticed. The credits roll over a montage of bloopers and comedic outtakes, reinforcing the film's self-aware tone. What makes the storyline so effective is how it manages to combine parody with genuine heart. It's not just a collection of jokes strung together. It's a coherent, fast-paced story that keeps viewers invested in both the mystery and the comedy. Each scene serves a purpose, whether it's to push the plot forward or to land a perfectly timed gag. In summary, The Naked Gun 2025 delivers a storyline that celebrates the absurdity of law enforcement comedies while paying homage to the beloved originals. It keeps the audience laughing without ever losing momentum, proving that even after decades, the blend of crime and comedy still works when handled with cleverness and respect for the genre's roots. The humor in The Naked Gun 2025 is both a nostalgic return to the absurd, physical comedy of the original trilogy and an innovative experiment in blending that style with modern-day satire. While most contemporary comedies rely heavily on dialogue-driven humor or improvisational banter, The Naked Gun 2025 dares to bring back the lost art of slapstick, complete with pratfalls, double takes, and hilariously timed disasters, all while integrating clever pop culture references and updated situational jokes. It's a delicate balancing act between honoring the legacy of Leslie Nielsen's original Frank Drebin and introducing a version of comedy that can appeal to 21st-century audiences accustomed to fast-paced, meme-driven humor. From the opening credits, the film sets the comedic tone. Instead of a traditional title sequence, viewers are greeted by the return of the iconic police siren POV shot, zooming through absurd environments. From a car wash to a space station, ending with the siren crashing into the Hollywood sign. This perfectly reestablishes the franchise's signature self-awareness, reminding audiences that the Naked Gun isn't afraid to laugh at itself or at the world it parodies. It's a signal that anything can happen and nothing is too sacred to joke about. Liam Neeson's performance as Frank Drebin Jr. becomes a masterclass in deadpan delivery. Known primarily for his serious roles in thrillers and action films, Neeson plays the character with absolute sincerity, which only amplifies the humor. He doesn't try to be funny. He is funny because he plays every ridiculous moment as if it's the most serious mission of his life. This technique mirrors what made Leslie Nielsen iconic in the original films, treating comedy as though it were high drama. Whether Drebin Jr. is slipping on a banana peel during a tactical briefing or arresting a mime for suspicious silence, Neeson's poker-faced commitment sells every joke. The film's humor draws from multiple comedic traditions: slapstick, wordplay, parody, and visual absurdity. One standout example involves Drebin's attempt to defuse a bomb hidden inside a luxury car. Instead of cutting the wires, he accidentally activates the car's voice assistant, which begins lecturing him about responsible driving. The bomb turns out to be a confetti-filled cake, and Drebin's heroic explosion leads to a slow-motion sequence of colorful frosting flying across the room. It's absurd, unexpected, and precisely the kind of joke that defines the Naked Gun franchise. The dialogue itself is packed with clever puns and misinterpretations that would make the Zucker brothers proud. Lines like, "We need to keep a low profile," followed by Drebin literally crouching for the rest of the scene, or "Follow that lead," causing officers to chase a man wearing a dog leash, reflect the film's love of taking idioms literally. These jokes appeal not only to fans of the original series but also to younger audiences discovering this kind of wordplay-driven humor for the first time. Modern-day parody is also a significant component of the humor. The movie playfully mocks today's obsession with technology, celebrity culture, and political correctness. For instance, there's a hilarious sequence where Drebin attempts to interrogate a suspect using a lie-detecting AI that keeps interrupting him with moral reminders about emotional safety. Another gag shows Drebin accidentally becoming a viral TikTok sensation after tripping into a fountain during a stakeout, a running joke that follows him throughout the film as his unintended fame grows. These contemporary touches ensure that while the movie celebrates classic humor, it still feels relevant in today's digital landscape. The supporting cast also contributes heavily to the comedic energy. Drebin's partner, Officer Jane Smith, provides the perfect contrast, sharp, sarcastic, and perpetually exasperated by Drebin's antics. Their exchanges are rapid-fire and filled with witty comebacks that keep the pacing brisk. The film avoids reducing her to a sidekick. Instead, she becomes a grounding force whose logical reactions make Drebin's absurdity even funnier. In one particularly memorable moment, she delivers a full, heartfelt monologue about the importance of teamwork, only for Drebin to ruin the moment by sneezing into his radio and accidentally calling in a SWAT team. What truly makes the humor shine is the film's commitment to physical comedy executed with modern production quality. The stunts are meticulously choreographed, ensuring that each fall, crash, and explosion lands with both visual impact and comedic precision. One of the most surprising aspects of The Naked Gun, 2025, is how effectively it merges thrilling, high-budget action sequences with the franchise's trademark absurd humor. This is not a simple spoof of action films. It's a full-blown action comedy that rivals even some serious blockbusters in visual execution. Every explosion, chase, and fight scene is choreographed with precision, filmed with cinematic flair, and then deliberately undercut by ridiculous comic timing. The result is a movie that's as visually exciting as it is hysterically funny, a perfect homage to both classic Hollywood action and parody cinema. The film wastes no time establishing this tone. The opening chase scene through downtown Los Angeles could easily fit into a Mission Impossible movie if it weren't for the fact that Frank Drebin Jr., Liam Neeson, keeps mistaking civilians for suspects and ends up commandeering a hot dog cart instead of a police vehicle. The sequence is shot with dynamic drone footage, intense camera angles, and a pulsating orchestral score that amplifies the ridiculousness of Drebin's incompetence. Each shot mimics the seriousness of a modern action thriller, which makes every comedic interruption, like Drebin accidentally setting off a street parade while pursuing the villain, even more hilarious. Director Akiva Schaffer's approach to visual storytelling is central to the film's success. Known for his background in comedy and music videos, pop star Never Stop Never Stopping, Schaffer brings an energetic visual rhythm to every frame. He treats the action scenes with genuine cinematic respect, using wide-angle shots, handheld sequences, and fast-paced editing to build tension, only to subvert it with perfectly timed punchlines. It's this commitment to production value that makes the humor so effective. The audience feels like they're watching a serious blockbuster until the joke detonates. A prime example comes in the mid-film helicopter sequence. Drebin and his partner Jane Smith infiltrate a villain's base via helicopter, but Drebin, trying to act tactical, accidentally sits on the ejector lever, sending himself flying into the sky while Jane is left screaming in disbelief. The visual of Drebin parachuting upside down, firing his gun in random directions, and somehow landing in the villain's hot tub creates a moment that's both visually stunning and side-splittingly funny. The sequence uses practical stunts, CGI, and slow-motion camera work in a way that feels like both a parody and a celebration of modern action filmmaking. The cinematography, handled by frequent comedy collaborator Brandon Trost, plays a major role in balancing realism and absurdity. Trost lights scenes as though they belong in a serious espionage thriller. Cool blues, harsh contrast, and lens flares that give each frame a polished look. Yet this realistic aesthetic serves as the perfect setup for visual gags. An overly dramatic zoom for a mundane line, a slow-motion close-up of Drebin dropping his donut instead of his weapon, or an action montage that devolves into a blooper reel in real time. The film's polished style becomes its greatest comedic weapon. One of the standout action sequences takes place at a high-end art museum, where Drebin is trying to intercept a criminal exchange. As alarms blare and lights flicker, he tries to use spy techniques he learned from watching old movies, including hiding behind statues dangling from ropes and sneaking through laser grids, all of which go catastrophically wrong. In one of the film's funniest visual moments, he ends up accidentally spray painting the Mona Lisa while trying to disable a motion sensor. The chaos unfolds with expert pacing, and despite the destruction, the sequence maintains a beautiful balance of tension and hilarity. The car chases in The Naked Gun, 2025, are also highlights of the film's visual style. Unlike the shaky cam aesthetic of most modern action movies, the chase scenes here are deliberately clear and choreographed, making every crash, skid, and explosion easy to follow, and easy to laugh at. In one chase, Drebin ends up driving backward for several minutes because his GPS is recalculating. Another has him accidentally switching vehicles mid-chase by leaping onto the villain's car and then calmly asking for directions. Each moment is a masterclass in turning cliché action tropes into comedic gold. The fight choreography also deserves praise. Drebin's combat style, a mix of overconfidence and complete lack of coordination, turns every confrontation into a slapstick ballet. Whether he's accidentally knocking himself out with his own baton or winning a fistfight by sneezing at the right time, his incompetence becomes the driving force of the humor. Yet the fights are shot with the intensity of serious cinema, using dynamic camera sweeps and bone-crunching sound effects that exaggerate every movement to hilarious effect. The film's visual effects, VFX, enhance both the action and the comedy. Explosions are exaggerated to cartoonish levels. Slow motion is used to highlight the most absurd moments, and transitions between scenes often mimic action trailers, complete with dramatic whooshes and zooms. For instance, one recurring joke involves dramatic title cards popping up every time Drebin enters a new location, sometimes even mid-conversation, adding to the movie's self-aware tone. Beyond the set pieces, the overall visual design of The Naked Gun, 2025, plays a key role in its humor. The movie is filled with Easter eggs and background jokes that reward repeat viewings, newspaper headlines that make no sense, posters advertising fake action sequels, and police computer screens filled with absurd details like crime. Level 900%. These blink and you'll miss it gags create a layered experience where every frame has something funny hiding in it. In a broader sense, the visual style of The Naked Gun 2025 represents a bridge between eras and the analog, practical comedy look of the original trilogy and the sleek digital polish of modern filmmaking. It respects the past without feeling dated. The combination of real stunts, clean camera work, and precise comedic framing gives it a timeless quality that stands out among the visual noise of today's comedies. By the end of the film, it becomes clear that the action sequences aren't just for spectacle, they're essential to the humor. Every explosion, chase, or fight becomes a setup for disaster, and every disaster leads to laughter. It's a rare feat in modern cinema to find action and comedy working so seamlessly together. But The Naked Gun 2025 pulls it off with confidence and style. In conclusion, the action and visual style of The Naked Gun 2025 elevate it beyond a typical parody. It's both a high-octane action spectacle and a brilliantly timed comedy. A film that understands that the best laughs come when the audience least expects them, especially in the middle of an explosion. Through smart direction, polished cinematography, and fearless physicality, the movie proves that even the most intense action scenes can be laugh-out-loud funny when seen through the eyes of Frank Drebin Jr. The success of The Naked Gun 2025 owes a massive debt to its direction and production team, who managed to strike the perfect balance between nostalgia and innovation. Steering the project was Akiva Schaffer, one-third of the Lonely Island comedy trio, known for his sharp wit, genre awareness, and ability to parody pop culture while delivering genuine entertainment. His direction turns what could have been a predictable reboot into a hilarious, stylish, and surprisingly heartfelt revival of one of Hollywood's most beloved comedy franchises. From the outset, Schaffer faced the daunting challenge of living up to the legacy of the original Naked Gun films, directed by the legendary David Zucker, who set the gold standard for slapstick and spoof cinema. But rather than simply imitate Zucker's approach, Schaffer pays tribute to it while layering on his own brand of visual humor, tight pacing, and modern sensibilities. His experience in directing pop star Never Stopping and Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers 2022 shines through here. Both films demonstrated his talent for combining self-aware comedy with cinematic polish. In The Naked Gun 2025, he uses every tool of modern filmmaking, from slick camera movements to contemporary humor, while keeping the heart and tone of the originals intact. One of Schaffer's smartest decisions was casting Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin Jr. At first glance, it seemed like a risky choice. Neeson is known for his serious roles in action films like Taken, The Grey, and Non-Stop. But Schaffer saw what made Leslie Nielsen so great: the ability to play absurd situations with total seriousness. By directing Neeson to act as though he's in a real thriller, Schaffer recreates the straight-faced absurdity that made the original Naked Gun movies timeless. Neeson's gravitas turns every ridiculous moment into comedic gold. The supporting cast, including Pamela Anderson, Paul Walter Hauser, and Kevin Durand, are equally well-directed. Schaffer ensures that each actor understands their role in the film's rhythm. They never overplay the comedy. Instead, they deliver their lines with conviction, letting the absurdity of the script and situations do the heavy lifting. This disciplined approach to acting creates a believable world where even the most ridiculous gags feel grounded, and that's the essence of great parody. Behind the camera, the production team assembled for The Naked Gun 2025 reads like a dream lineup for a modern comedy classic. The producers, Dan Lin, Jonathan Eyrick, and Akiva Schaffer himself, ensured the film had both the budget and creative freedom needed to execute its ambitious vision. Lin and Eyrick, known for Aladdin 2019 and The Two Popes 2019, brought a level of blockbuster production value rarely seen in comedies today. Their influence is felt in the film's big set pieces, polished visuals, and large-scale scope that rivals action films. The screenplay, written by Dan Greger and Doug Mand, plays a crucial role in maintaining the film's tone. The duo, who previously collaborated with Schaffer on Chip and Dale, injects the script with clever wordplay, absurd visual jokes, and rapid-fire dialogue while keeping the pacing tight. They understand that the Naked Gun franchise thrives on unpredictability. Every scene should feel like it could go off the rails at any moment. And their script fully embraces that chaos. The cinematography, led by Brandon Trost, adds another layer of excellence. Trost, who has worked on visually inventive comedies like The Disaster Artist and This Is the End, captures each scene with striking clarity. He treats comedy with the same seriousness as drama, using lighting, framing, and movement to give every joke visual power. His use of clean compositions allows sight gags to stand out without clutter, and his dramatic lighting enhances the parody of modern action films. Equally impressive is the work of the editing team, led by Dean Zimmerman, whose experience on Stranger Things and Free Guy makes him the perfect choice. Comedy editing is all about timing, and Zimmerman nails it. He ensures that each punchline lands at just the right moment, whether it's cutting mid-sentence for comedic shock or extending a pause for awkward hilarity. The pacing remains snappy throughout the film, preventing the humor from ever dragging. Production design also plays a vital part in the Naked Gun 2025's comedic world. Jeff Mann, the production designer, crafts environments that are realistic yet subtly exaggerated. Police offices filled with nonsensical gadgets, villain lairs that look like a cross between Bond sets and amusement parks, and cityscapes dotted with ironic billboards. Every location becomes a character, filled with visual jokes waiting to be discovered. Mann's attention to detail gives the film the layered humor of a classic Zucker-Abraham Zucker production. The costume design by Sarah Edwards complements this visual world. Drebin's wardrobe, classic trench coats, ill-fitting suits, and absurd disguises, recalls the original series while giving Neeson's version a modern edge. The villains' exaggerated outfits parody high-fashion aesthetics often seen in contemporary spy films. Even background extras are dressed in ways that hint at running gags, rewarding observant viewers with subtle laughs. Another critical element of direction is how Schaffer handles the tone. Parody films often struggle with balance, lean too far into absurdity, and the story loses focus. Stay too serious and the comedy falls flat. Schaffer masterfully walks this tightrope, making sure the stakes of the story always feel real, even when the situations are ludicrous. This tonal precision allows audiences to invest emotionally while laughing uncontrollably at the chaos. The soundtrack and score, composed by Mark Mothersbaugh, add yet another dimension to the film's direction. Mothersbaugh's music captures the grandeur of a spy thriller with the quirkiness of a comedy, using orchestral crescendos to heighten absurd moments. His score often plays the straight man to the jokes, dramatic and serious, even when the visuals are ridiculous, amplifying the humor through contrast. From a production standpoint, The Naked Gun 2025 stands as one of the most technically polished comedies in recent years. The blending of practical effects and CGI is seamless, allowing outrageous stunts to coexist with authentic environments. The decision to film on location rather than relying solely on green screen adds a layer of realism that makes the humor more immersive. In the end, Akiva Schaffer's direction transforms The Naked Gun 2025 from a simple reboot into a masterful homage. It respects the comedic DNA of the originals while bringing it into a new cinematic era with confidence, style, and heart. The production team's meticulous craftsmanship ensures that every gag, explosion, and pratfall feels purposeful. This is not just a film that makes audiences laugh. It's one that celebrates the art of making them laugh through exceptional filmmaking. The technical backbone of The Naked Gun 2025 is one of the key reasons the movie succeeds in blending nostalgia with modern cinematic standards. While most people remember the Naked Gun series for its outrageous gags and slapstick comedy, the craftsmanship behind those laughs is what made the humor work. The 2025 reboot understands this perfectly. Every scene, sound, and edit is meticulously designed to amplify both the comedy and the storytelling. The film's music, editing, sound design, and overall technical execution come together like a symphony of chaos, where precision and absurdity dance in perfect rhythm. Let's start with the music. Composed by the legendary Mark Mothersbaugh, known for his work on the Lego Movie, Thor, Ragnarok, and 21 Jump Street. His involvement brings a sense of energetic, offbeat creativity to the score. Mothersbaugh's music does what great comedy scores do best. It plays the joke straight. The score never winks at the audience. Instead, it swells with heroic intensity during the most ridiculous moments, creating a contrast that enhances the laughter. For instance, when Frank Drebin Jr., Liam Neeson, slips on a banana peel while trying to defuse a bomb, the music erupts into a full orchestral crescendo, as if he were performing a life-saving act. The audience laughs not just because of the fall, but because the music treats it like a scene from Inception. Mothersbaugh also incorporates subtle musical callbacks to the original trilogy. Fans will immediately recognize variations of Ira Newborn's classic Naked Gun theme, now reimagined with modern orchestration and electronic flourishes. It's both nostalgic and fresh, bridging the gap between the old-school comedy sensibility and the sleek aesthetic of modern blockbusters. The film's use of musical cues to accentuate visual jokes is also brilliant. In one sequence, a chase through a museum is scored with an overly dramatic opera piece, creating an ironic layer of grandeur as Drebin clumsily crashes through priceless artifacts. The editing, handled by Dean Zimmerman, is another triumph. Comedy lives and dies by timing, and Zimmerman's work ensures that every joke lands with pinpoint precision. His background in action comedy, Free Guy, Stranger Things, gives him an intuitive understanding of rhythm, knowing when to cut quickly for surprise and when to linger for awkward hilarity. Many of the film's biggest laughs come not from the dialogue itself, but from how the scenes are cut. For example, one running gag involves Drebin attempting to deliver a serious monologue, only for the scene to cut abruptly just before he finishes, leaving his words hanging in absurdity. Zimmerman also excels in blending action editing with comedic timing. During the film's high-speed chases and fight scenes, he maintains clarity while inserting perfectly timed visual gags. Quick inserts, like a police training manual falling open to a page titled "How Not to Do This," flash by just long enough for the audience to register the joke without slowing the pace. The result is a seamless fusion of energy and humor that keeps viewers engaged on multiple levels. The sound design further enhances the comedic tone. Every crash, slap, and explosion is exaggerated to cartoonish extremes without ever feeling artificial. Foley artists use sound as an extension of the comedy, from squeaky shoes echoing during tense moments to overly dramatic whoosh effects when characters turn their heads. The mix also cleverly balances diegetic and non-diegetic sound. In one hilarious example, Drebin's inner monologue becomes so loud that another character asks, "Are you talking to yourself out loud again?" Blurring the line between thought and dialogue. The film's technical design doesn't just serve the jokes, it builds the world. The visual effects team, supervised by Kevin Bailey, known for The Walk and Welcome to Marwen, creates exaggerated yet believable digital enhancements that heighten the humor. Explosions linger too long, cars fly through the air in impossible arcs, and digital birds freeze mid-flight during slapstick moments. These effects aren't meant to show off realism. They're there to emphasize the absurdity. Cinematographer Brandon Trost's camera work plays a huge role in the film's technical success. His ability to light a scene like a serious action thriller while framing it for comedy allows every gag to shine. Trost uses deep focus to ensure background jokes remain visible, a must for a Naked Gun movie, where half the humor happens behind the main action. In one shot, Drebin is passionately interrogating a suspect while, in the background, an officer accidentally sets fire to his own pants, never mentioned, but impossible to miss. This layered composition is a hallmark of Schaffer and Trost's visual collaboration. The film also makes creative use of modern editing technologies. The team employs subtle motion tracking and digital compositing to create complex, multi-layered scenes that feel chaotic, yet coherent. During one action sequence, Drebin accidentally sets off every car alarm in a 5-block radius. The editing and sound mixing combine hundreds of small elements into a perfectly orchestrated cacophony of chaos. This attention to detail shows the craftsmanship behind what seems on the surface to be spontaneous stupidity. Color grading also plays into the humor. Unlike the soft, flat tones of most comedies, The Naked Gun, 2025, embraces the high-contrast look of a gritty crime thriller, dark shadows, neon highlights, and sharp whites. This creates an ironic disconnect between what the audience sees and what they're watching. The world looks like John Wick, but the characters behave like clowns. It's a visual joke that runs throughout the movie. Another technical highlight is the film's use of transitions and visual motifs. Scene changes often double as gags, like a fade-out shaped like police tape or a wipe transition caused by an exploding pie. These creative flourishes harken back to the sight gag editing of Airplane, and hotshots, reminding audiences that every frame of a parody can be a playground for jokes. The soundtrack, curated by Mothersbaugh and music supervisor Randall Poster, adds another comedic layer through song selection. Tracks like Bad to the Bone, Eye of the Tiger, and Stayin' Alive are used ironically, always played during moments where Drebin is doing the exact opposite of what the song implies. The juxtaposition between confident music and incompetent behavior keeps the humor fresh throughout. From a broader perspective, the technical aspects of The Naked Gun 2025 are not just about achieving realism. They're about amplifying unreality in believable ways. The movie operates on a fine line between precision and chaos, and the technical team ensures that chaos always looks and sounds flawless. This level of craft gives the film its replay value. On every rewatch, audiences notice new background details, hidden jokes, or perfectly mixed sound effects that enhance the comedy. In conclusion, the music, editing, and technical elements of The Naked Gun 2025 elevate it beyond a simple parody. They demonstrate how deeply effective comedy depends on craft, the invisible precision behind every visible mistake. Mothersbaugh's score, Zimmerman's razor-sharp editing, and Trost's cinematic visuals form a trifecta that transforms the film into both a hilarious farce and a technical masterpiece. It's proof that in the right hands, even a joke can be engineered to perfection.